Well, good evening, City of St.Albert. My name is Inspector Ryan Kominick. I'm the detachment commander here at St.Albert Detachment. Thanks for joining us this evening for this virtual live stream. We're recording live from the RCMP detachment in St.Albert, the corner of Melrose and Boudreau. Thank you. And joining me today is our team leader from Community Policing and Victim Services, Corporal Morgan Kyle, and she's going to have provide an overview of her unit and program here later in the stream. So to start off, I'd like to do a land acknowledgement. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police acknowledges Treaty 6 territory, the ancestral and traditional territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, Dakota Sioux, as well as the Métis. We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for generations. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. We recognize the land as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we reside on or are visiting. The next slide, please. So for those that participated or tuned in for the last virtual town hall, I provided a overview of the RCMP detachment here in St.Albert. I guess the anatomy of the detachment provided a bit of a description of the units and kind of sort of their key roles and responsibilities. So we've got an operational, a general duty side of the house. So those are the uniformed officers. Those are the officers you'll see out and about in the city of St. Albert, on patrol or responding to calls, complaints. And there are 4 watches, and there is a sergeant, watch commander, and a frontline supervisor, a corporal. And within each watch, there's 8 constables, so a total of 10 officers. And then still on the uniform side of the house, we have a traffic unit, which has a corporal, team leader, and 6 constables. We also have on the operational support side of the house, we have a number of plainclothes units. We'll start with our general investigation section. So the general investigation section will deal with some of the more complex, more serious types of investigations. So, for example, serious assaults with weapons, assaults causing bodily harm, that type of thing, as well as persons crimes like sexual assaults, any types of offenses that involve minors. And over to our crime reduction unit. So our crime reduction has a corporal team leader as well, and 4 officers. So again, it's a plainclothes unit. They're typically keeping tabs on prolific offenders in the community. They will also, if we do have a prolific offender in the community, they will typically conduct surveillance. They'll work closely with probation and parole. Make sure that those offenders are abiding by their release conditions, and really they're dedicated to crime prevention, essentially, and carry out the enforcement objectives as well. They're also they will do project-based work as well, so they will work on lengthy investigations involving multiple offenses, and they also keep an eye on crime trends in the community. We also have a dedicated drug section. So again, those are plainclothes officers. Those are officers you will not see in the community because they're typically carrying about their business in plainclothes and quite often conducting their business covertly. So obviously they're dedicated towards drug investigations, trafficking of drugs, sale and distribution of drugs, and the last unit is our Community Policing and Victim Services. I guess I can let you present on your program. So,
do you want a brief overview now and then?
Yeah, you know what? Let's maybe just a brief overview and then we'll move into the others.
Yeah, so my unit, there's myself and 4 constables, and we cover all the crime prevention, victim services, and community policing work. So we work closely with victim services. We work closely to try and come up with new and improved ideas on reducing crime, working with the other units, and anything community policing. So working with community partners, working with community members, and attending a lot of the events and schools in the area. And I'll go into further detail on that later.
Great, thank you. Next slide, please. So who we are and where we work here at the St.Albert Detachment. So this is a 24-hour detachment. So there are officers on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's contact information there on the slide. Our address, telephone number, some of the services available on the administrative side of the house. So we provide criminal record checks, general information, non-emergency complaints, police certificates, can report a crime here, and we also do the vulnerable sector checks. So for the police certificate, quite often people will require certification for immigration passport, that type of thing. So we do provide those services as well during administrative hours. And the hours of operation are there on the screen for your reference. Next slide, please. St.Albert crime map. So for many of you that receive and view the St.Albert Gazette, you will see weekly we do post the crime map. So it's a visual representation of where crime is occurring in the community. Whatever neighborhood that you may live in, you can get certainly get a snapshot of what's going on in your particular area of the city. And it'll display the crime mischiefs, break and enters, theft from motor vehicles, theft over under 5,000, for example, like theft of mail, bicycles, other items, and theft of motor vehicles. So again, just a good visual representation for those in the community that are interested in keeping tabs on what's going on in the city at various times of the year. Next slide, please. And next is just a St.Albert Municipal Crime Gauge. So it's just some statistics that I've populated into the PowerPoint here just to give everyone a sense as to what types of offenses are up or down, I guess, trending in the community. So this is comparison between 2021 to 2022. So you can see persons crimes are up 11%, property crime up 17%, and other criminal code down 7%. So, and then there's just a few other categories there of property crimes as well. So 38% increase in break and enters, 51% increase in theft of motor vehicles, and 17% up theft under 5,000. So again, this, crime knows no boundaries. So here in the city, we do have crime trends. We do have offenders that will flow in and out of the community, commit crime, and typically our crime reduction unit is on their heels, and they'll move on to other communities if they're not arrested and charged in relation to the offenses here in the city. So those trends move up and down. I guess from my standpoint, some of those trends are getting back to some of the numbers pre-pandemic. So nothing really alarming there from my standpoint. Things did taper off during the pandemic, and this is just another sign that things are starting to return to normal. Next slide, please. So here at the St.Albert Detachment, we build an annual performance plan every year. So and that's done in consultation with the St.Albert Policing Committee. I'll get into a little bit more of that later in the presentation. So The three policing priorities currently for our current fiscal year, which runs from April 1st to March 31st every year, is our first priority is crime reduction. And that is engage proactive initiatives to decrease crimes against persons and property. Our second is mental health and vulnerable communities. So description of that is enhanced response, outreach, and support for seniors, youth, and other vulnerable communities. And lastly, is our domestic violence and assaults. So proactively address instances of ongoing or repetitive domestic violence, spousal, and gender-based violence. And next slide, please. Crime reduction initiatives. So Corporal Kyle will get into a little bit more of this when she presents on her program, but a few of the initiatives that I've include hotspot policing. So areas within the city with higher concentrations of crime. So again, those areas will become a focus of ours and certainly our crime reduction unit. Prolific offender management. So prolific offenders are closely monitored and their court-imposed conditions are strictly enforced, as I spoke of earlier. Hashtag 9 p.m. routine and the Lock and Lose It program. So just reminds citizens in the community to protect themselves and their property by conducting nightly routines to ensure property is secure. And Operation Cold Start, which we've run in the last couple of years, typically runs late January to early February. Next slide, please. So a few crime reduction initiatives. So this is just building off of what I presented on earlier, is crime prevention through environmental design, as design and physical use of space can reduce opportunities for crime. We also have the crime-free multi-housing. 3 phases completed under the supervision of CFMH coordinators and inspections of buildings and environment. For example, interior and exterior lighting, windows, doors, trees, shrubs, and blocking sight lines, etc. And lastly, other supports initiatives include the violent threat risk assessments. The acronym for that is VTRA. You may have heard that in the community with those that have kids in school. Community wraparound, strategy and mobilization committee, and the provincial and Catholic school boards as well. Safe Internet Exchange Zone at Service Credit Union Place, which was implemented last year. And I'm hearing that it's utilized quite often, provides for obviously safe exchange of internet type sales and purchases. So happy that we're able to provide that to citizens of St.Albert. The next screen. My skills training. I think you've got that included in your presentation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So skip this for now. I'm just going to speak quickly on the mental health of vulnerable communities priority and initiative. So that includes the mental health toolkits. That was again something that we rolled out late last year. So it's a toolkit. It's in the police vehicle, so the officers take them out on patrol with them. And there's a lot of items in there that can assist them with dealing with folks in crisis and those that are, suffering perhaps from a mental health episode. Collaborative community group efforts. So family community support services partnership. We work closely with FCSS. And then, as I spoke of earlier, the violent threat risk assessment, VTRA, and wraparound and community outreach programs. And then something new somewhat new, I guess, to the St.Albert RCMP, but maybe not so new to the RCMP district area that St.Albert's included in. It's the Rural Police and Crisis Team, RPACT. So it's a specialized unit of sorts that includes RCMP, a couple RCMP officers and a mental health therapist from Alberta Health Services responding to mental health calls. So if those calls are complex in nature, or there's someone in the community that is perhaps under the care of a doctor or a therapist, and they find themselves in crisis, typically we'll get a call here at the St.Albert RCMP, and we have the option of engaging a rural police and crisis team RPAC. So again, just another level of expertise that we can draw upon when we need it, and when they're available, we're certainly happy to assist us here in the city of St.Albert. Next slide, please. So now in review of the Domestic Violence and Assaults Initiative, we've introduced recent legislation was introduced in the way of Clare's Law, and it's public awareness education, a program or a service that's available through the St.Albert detachment, actually all detachments across the province. Clare's Law request is being monitored by, we actually have 2 dedicated domestic violence investigators embedded within our general investigation section. So it's a great service. It's new, but for those in the community that are perhaps entering into a new relationship and would like to add some due diligence to that process, they can certainly make referrals now through that new legislation through Clare's Law. Next, Domestic Violence Awareness Month is October, and Prevention of Violence Month is November. But ongoing media and social media campaigns for those 2 programs. Tools for access services are provided. And again, another kind of new way for people to reach out is the Signal for Help campaign, and that's been leveraged quite heavily and advertised through various social media streams. So again, it's just finding new ways for victims to reach out for help. And then the collaborative community group effort. So we have the St.Albert Domestic and Sexual Violence Community Response Committee. That is a fairly new committee, or at least a newly named committee. So they meet typically monthly, just stakeholders to get together and discuss what's new and how everyone can support one another. And then we have the Stop Abuse in Families, that group, and our Victim Services Unit, and St.Albert Community Village. And lastly, we have our Domestic Violence Task Force again, which is just a group of members in the community that have shared interests in crime prevention, education, and awareness around domestic violence. Excuse me, next slide. So did you want to expand a little bit more on your program and kind of what you offer?
Yeah, so our unit, as I said before, is called Crime Prevention and Victim Services Community Policing Unit. And so we do all aspects of community policing. So any media releases that you might see come out, that comes from our unit, so that we can keep the community informed and other community agencies informed of what's going on in the community, keeping that transparency open. We monitor all the Crime Stoppers tips. So if you ever have a complaint that you want to put in anonymously, you can always send in a Crime Stoppers tip, which is always available on our media releases. And then that way you can report a crime anonymously or give us information on a crime anonymously. So a couple years ago, we initiated the St.Albert Camera Registry. So if you want to be part of that, it's still active and up and running. And that's where you can send us an email with some information on what kind of cameras you have around your property and indicate whether or not you're willing to share some footage with us if a crime happens in your area. That way we can map it, and we're aware of where there's cameras in the community. So if there is a crime that happens, we can easily refer to our camera registry and go directly to those locations to get camera footage easily. You're not, letting us sign on to it without permission. We're still going to come and talk to you about it if we are requesting it, but at least we know where that camera footage is. We had the Safe Internet Exchange Zone, which Inspector Kamanik talked about earlier, that we set up at Service Place last year. And that's to, combat some of those crimes where people are making arrangements on the internet to buy or sell items, and they're unsure where to meet. So we created the Safe Internet Exchange Zone so that people can be assured that it's a location where they have permission to go to, And there's constant 24/7 video surveillance. So you have a little bit more peace of mind that, you know, at least it's on video surveillance should something happen, and it's a safe location. And like I said, you know, a lot of people aren't sure if they have permission to park somewhere to conduct these exchanges. So at Service Place, there's a sign up so you can be sure that you are in a location where you're permitted to be. We talked about VITRA earlier, and so we partner with the schools and the community. We have a VITRA protocol that's signed, and we do VITRAs throughout the year, both during school and during the summertime. If there's you know, high risk incident that happens, that we need to contact our community partners about to discuss some crime prevention strategies and support for families. We can get together and we have that protocol in place so that we can do so safely and effectively. Mental health toolkits we talked about, and that was brought in a few months ago to provide a little bit more resources for our officers when dealing with mental health calls. And it provides our clients with, you know, just some comforting items. There's things in there like water, some candies if they just need something to kind of munch on to calm their fears. We have some Play-Doh, fidgets, you know, lots of fun things in there.
Toys.
Yeah, lots of toys. Sometimes when your mind is racing, you just need something a distractor item. So we've got lots of those in there. Victim Services Unit Liaison. So currently I'm the Victim Services Unit Liaison, and we work very closely together to support the victims of crimes in our community and other communities as well if those victims come to our office. And we work closely to ensure that the Victim Services Unit has all the information they need to support victims, as well as any other information that they might need in relation to other agencies. We can assist them with that as well. So we work very closely that way. We work with a lot of different community agencies such as Neighborhood Watch, Citizens on Patrol, ensuring that they have the information that they need to, Citizens on Patrol, going out and patrolling areas that have higher levels of property theft, and ensuring that they have close connection with the RCMP detachment. Should they see anything of concern, we'll always respond. The Mental Wellness Working Table, Welcoming and Inclusive Working Table, the Elder Abuse Committee, Neighborhood Connections, Neighborhood Development, the School Resource Team, Strategy and Mobilization Committee, and the Sexual Violence Prevention and Response Subcommittee, as well as wraparound. And right now we have two different wraparound tables. We have the school-based wraparound table and a newly formed community wraparound table. So we have a couple things going on there. We always enjoy handing out positive tickets. That program started several years ago here in St.Albert, and anytime we see someone in the community doing great work, or if they're out riding a bike and they're wearing a helmet as per the St.Albert helmet bylaw, we'll give them a positive ticket and start that positive interaction both with adults and with youth. We mentioned before the SEPTED and crime-free multi-housing. Those are two programs. We have trained officers that can attend any location and talk about ways to make your, whether it's a house or a business, better lit and ensure that you have some good crime prevention techniques in there. So we've done that for residences, businesses. We've done it for a few, public health agencies in town. And I think currently we're working on, just going around to businesses and seeing if there's anything anyone requires and, any questions that anyone has. So we have that ability. If you have any questions about any properties you might own or anywhere that you might manage as a business or own as a business, feel free to give us a call and we can give you some tips on that. And then, so this is just a little breakdown of kind of what we do during the year and how it changes throughout the year. Obviously, during the school year, we spend a lot of time in the schools as school resource officers. And so my team, it's myself and 4 others. We provide a lot of education to the schools and support to the schools as needed. And some of the programs that we currently have is our grade 8 education and our grade 6 education. So starting in grade 6, that's changed over the years and it's currently still changing. But previously it used to be DARE, and everyone's kind of heard of DARE, I think. One thing the RCMP is doing is they're trying to do some updates. And so over the last 18 months, we were involved in a pilot project with Botman Life Skills program. And we were very fortunate to be selected for the pilot project. It was a great initiative to do during the pandemic because we could do it safely. We could be either in person or online. And we were able to use our officers' experience and knowledge to provide some really good feedback on Botman Life Skills. So that pilot project is now completed. And the evaluations are all sent to Ottawa, and they are going to look at those evaluations and determine if we're going to be using that program or not. So in the meantime, we still wanted to provide some education to our grade 6 students. And in St.Albert, we like to do it across the board. So all the grade 6 students in St.Albert have the same kind of education. And so what we're going to do this year is we're going to utilize a lot of the information from DARE and Botman. And we've created our own 5-lesson education that we're going to do for this year. And we're going to talk about peer pressure. We're going to talk about alcohol and cannabis and vaping. We're going to talk about stress because it's been a stressful couple of years. And so we're going to do that for this year. And then we're going to see where the RCMP is at with Botman Life Skills and take it from there. And then we go to grade 8, and in grade 8 we do alcohol, vaping, and cannabis. And it's kind of a build of that grade 6 material. So we talk to all the grade 8s and we build on that education that they learned in grade 6 and kind of expand on it, provide a little bit more information and relate it to what they're already learning in school. We provide presentations and support to all levels, elementary through high school, and we talk about things like internet safety, bullying, consent in relationships, bicycle safety, just depending on the age group and whatever the teacher or principal is looking to have in their school. So those educational information sessions are by request. We don't have a, kind of a blanket lesson that we do for all the levels. That's just by request. And then every year we go through our safe plans. So School Action for Emergency is what that stands for. And the schools use Hour Zero. And that's, our lockdown drills and ensuring that we have all the information where if something was to happen in the schools that we're prepared and we're informed. And a lot of what we do is we, take the uniform members around and introduce them to the schools and the school staff and let them look around the schools and get familiar with what the classrooms look like, what the hallways look like, and that kind of thing.
Can you talk about the difference between secure lockdown and a secure
full and secure? Absolutely.
Because I think there's a lot of questions in the community, various events over the years where we've initiated those safe plans, and I think just to provide parents with a little bit more detail as to the difference between the two, I think there is some value in that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start with a lockdown because that's what we hear more often, people talking about a lockdown. And so a lockdown is when the school is locked down, all the doors, even to the classrooms, to the outside, everything's locked. And the students are, depending on the classroom, they're primarily told to go under their desks and away from windows. And that's in a situation where there might be an incident within the school, potentially someone with a weapon, but essentially nobody should be moving around the school. Everyone should be hiding in place until the RCMP get there. and shouldn't be released until the RCMP deems that it's safe. At that point in time, we would respond and we might call in for extra support depending on the situation. Hold and secure is where the outside of the building is locked, but the students can still move freely within the school. So they can still attend all their classrooms. Nothing has to stop. It's just the outside doors are locked because something's happening in the outside community, and we just don't want them coming in, and we don't want anyone in the school leaving. So if there's a hold and secure and it's lunch break, the kids are not going to be leaving the school for lunch. If it's at the end of the day, they're not going to be leaving the school until we have determined that it's safe to do so. So a lot of times we do hear people calling a hold and secure a lockdown, but it's not really the same thing.
Yeah, no, that's good. Appreciate that.
So then I'll just go into our warmer months, and we're very fortunate in St.Albert that in the warmer months we have our golf carts that we patrol the parks, the green spaces, the pathways, and you'll see uniformed officers waving very friendly out of the golf cart. They might stop and chat, and you can stop them and chat with them about anything. Typically, they're happy to do so. And because there's no school, we attend summer camps and do presentations there, meet with community organizations and do presentations for community organizations. We attend block parties, farmers market, and community events such as the Rainmaker Rodeo and Canada Day and those kind of things.
Yeah, usually when the city initiates their hot weather advisories, there's usually a couple of flats of cold water on that golf cart. So
yeah.
Making sure everyone's staying hydrated in the parks and on the trails. So thank you for that overview. Appreciate that. So we did in advance of today's virtual town hall, we did put out the opportunity for people to submit questions. And we only got 2 questions, but they're both related to the recent Alberta Provincial Police study that was recently out in the media. So I'm going to do my best to try and answer. I just made some notes here, so I'm just going to do my best to try to answer those 2 questions. So the first one was, what would happen to St.Albert RCMP officers if the Alberta Provincial Police Service model was approved? So thank you for that question. So there's a lot to unpack there, but regardless of what decision is made, St.Albert RCMP would remain steadfast in our dedication and commitment to serving the city of St.Albert and their residents. So like many large corporate or government sector shuffles, there would be a significant transition period. And in an instance like this, it could take a number of years for a provincial police service to be fully integrated and operational. In the meantime, the Alberta RCMP and St.Albert RCMP specifically will continue doing what we have been doing, and that's delivering quality, customized policing services to the city of St.Albert and its residents. So, and within the same vein, I know there's been a fair amount of coverage in the media about the city of Surrey that in British Columbia that recently stood up a new municipal policing service. And is currently going through a transition period with the Surrey RCMP. So my understanding is that this is a hybrid model currently, so a hybrid operational model. So the newly formed Surrey Police Service officers are working alongside or in conjunction with the outgoing RCMP in Surrey. So I'm not sure on the actual forecast for the length of that transition period, but I would suspect a similar transition model would be implemented here if the government of Alberta was to decide to onboard a provincial police service. And in this instance, the Surrey RCMP officers have the option of, like to the question itself, they would have the option of patching over to the newly formed Surrey Police Service or seek relocation elsewhere within the RCMP, within the organization. The other question was, I have been a St.Albert resident for close to 25 years, and I don't like the fact that the St.Albert RCMP is controlled by the federal government, so why should I not be in favor of a provincial police service? So thank you for that comment and question. Although the RCMP are a federal entity, the Alberta RCMP and St.Albert RCMP designed their annual service delivery standards independently in consultation with the communities in which they serve. So ultimately, it is the safety and security of all Albertans that matters to the Alberta RCMP, and that same philosophy and commitment obviously applies to the City of St.Albert and St.Albert RCMP. There are a few misconceptions, but the fact is each and every year, detachment commanders across Alberta engage their elected officials and community stakeholders, and through a consultative process, they build an annual performance plan. So here at the St.Albert detachment, myself as the officer in charge, I partnered with the St.Albert Policing Committee in the new year, and we start the conversation around what policing service priorities and initiatives they would like to implement for the upcoming fiscal year. So, and I need to emphasize that this process is very much discussed and customized at a very local level. So it doesn't really necessarily matter what's going on in communities around St. Albert. It's what the City of St. Albert requires at that particular time. So, and it all starts with the policing committee. And they're in regular consultation with the public as well as elected officials on the expectations of policing services. So just for example, currently within the City of St. Albert and certainly within in and around the Edmonton area, there's been an increase in thefts of catalytic converters. So that is a trend. It's impacting the City of St. Albert. So I would anticipate that when I sit down at the table in the new year with the policing committee, is we're gonna have that conversation around and try and consider incorporating that into our annual performance plan to address that crime trend. So kind of within that same vein, I did a little research on the history of the RCMP here in St. Albert and discovered that the then town of St. Albert, I'm not sure what the population would have been, but it would have been a lot smaller than it is today, had its own police force from 1896 to 1944. And so here's a little excerpt from the T8N magazine that was published back in March of 2019. So the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, by 1944, it was becoming far too expensive to sustain a police force in the growing town of St. Albert. The town council dissolved the police force and invited the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to act as the town's police force once again, a role they continue to serve to this day. While they originally operated out of the former St. Albert Police Headquarters, the RCMP soon moved to a modern police station on Muir Drive, complete with holding cells. So across from the old Grandin Mall. They stayed at this location until 1976, when they moved to a sleek new building in Grandin, the same building that houses the Hemingway Center today. So I corrected myself, it was a different location, and then they moved to the Grandin location. And then in 2001, they moved to the current day station that sits on the corner of Boudreau and Belrose, where we are live streaming here today. So just a little history on the RCMP here in St. Albert. So to that particular question, I can say with conviction that the St. Albert RCMP detachment is comprised of proud public servants who come to work each day wanting to make a difference in this community. Not just the officers, but also the city employees who provide administrative support to policing operations. The majority of these employees live here and help form the fiber of this community. They're your neighbors, they're moms and dads, they're coaches and volunteers who all call St. Albert home. St. Albert RCMP are proud to be your police service today and hope to be your police service tomorrow and well into the future, obviously. So yeah, just a little bit of information there on the history of the RCMP and the St. Albert detachment. So that's 2 questions I got. I tried to answer them to the best of my ability. I'm hoping that next time we have a virtual town hall or have a town hall that we can have it in person. I know that everyone's busy with kids getting back into the swing of the school year and school sports and of course minor sports. So it is a very busy time for everyone. So just hoping we can get the participation up for this here today. I thank you for your time. I thank you for your attentiveness. And if there's any questions that come about through this presentation that you would like more information on, please reach out to that link that is provided for this virtual strain. Morgan, anything else that you wanted to add to that?
I just wanted to bring attention to some of these resources that we have at our detachment, and I'll leave some of these at the front counter for anyone that wants to come and grab some. So we saw earlier in the presentation that, our property crime is going up a little bit after the pandemic here. So we have car tags that say all valuables removed. We have a couple different versions with, reminders on the back of how to prevent theft at your property, and tags for at home to remind you of the 9 p.m. routine. So any citizens of St.Albert, feel free to come grab them from the detachment. They'll be at the front counter.
Yeah, during regular
recess hours, yeah.
Yeah, and we are very happy too that we, post-pandemic, we're starting to open the detachment up a little bit more, trying to get things a little bit back to normal, and offering all the services that we provide here to assist you with whatever your needs may be. So I'll bid everyone a good evening. Stay safe.